Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live. Episode 49 coming at you from the valley. And it's getting hot out here. That summertime desert heat. Well, we got a loaded show for you. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. Bows and TKOs, a weekly MMA podcast, UFC heavy. But this episode, we're only recapping UFC Fight Night Vegas 92, as we have a week off for Memorial Day holiday. And then I am going to chat about other fight promotions, including UFC Fight Pass 7 recap, the ADXC 4 recap, Bellator Championship Series, and the massive Tyson Fury Oleksandr Usyk boxing bout. So again, episode 49, let's jump right in. So some fights that have been announced. We have Farid Basharat substituting in for Saeed Nurmagomedov in his fight against Montel Jackson June 22nd. Really been wanting to see Saeed back in the octagon. Bum Ray's pulling out, but still a solid bout for Farid and Montel. We got Charles Jourdain and Gene Silva for June 29th. That should be one hell of a scrap. And then, not official, but John Jones tweeted that him and Stipe Miocic will be happening finally a year later this November 9th at MSG. He has since deleted the tweet, but I'm assuming that's going to be the case. That's what I was assuming anyways, based on the recovery and timeline. So lots to look forward to the rest of the year in the UFC. And then, somewhat bummer news, we have Khalil Roundtree Jr. out of his fight against Jamal Hill due to a positive test for what he is saying was a blended substance. I think it was Austrian as well for the blended supplement. So, because he had been proactive to the UFC, they're giving him a short suspension. But he will be out, so Jamal Hill looking for a new opponent. And somewhat surprising, a boxing bout announced between Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva. They will be boxing in Brazil June 15th, a rematch with the big gloves. And I'm assuming Anderson Silva is in pretty good shape. Chael looks to be in good shape, but I have no idea if he has been doing anything with striking. So I'm definitely favoring Anderson in this early, but should be a fun with the trash talk and everything else. A little nostalgic, especially after, about a month ago, Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva, that fight inducted in the Hall of Fame while I was in Miami at UFC 299. But this week, a lot of grappling going down. We had UFC Fight Pass 7, where Janatis Gracie defeated Nicky Rod's brother Jay Rodriguez by points. That was a good matchup. We had Renato Canuto defeating Aaron Wilson by heel hook. We had Renato Moicano defeating Christian Guzman by points. Moicano taking control, getting on the mic, saying his thing. And then Nicky Rodriguez defeating Mason Fowler via points in overtime. One hell of a brilliant display of martial arts that was for no gi. If you're trying to get into grappling, you could watch this if you're a Fight Pass subscriber. That Nicky Rodriguez, Mason Fowler was true grappler versus true jiu-jitsu artist, and it was a brilliant thing to watch. I highly recommend checking that out. Matchups I did not watch due to the time change. There was also ADXC 4, which is a grappling promotion that Abu Dhabi is promoting. I like the quality of competition. They were up against a lot of different events this weekend, but they did have Benoit Saint-Denis grapple against Mark DeCasey, and BSD gets the win via unanimous decision. And then Fionn Davies defeating Morgan Black via round 1 armbar. So always good to see Fionn and BSD. So if you haven't checked out ADXC yet, follow them on social medias. It's definitely worth it as they get a lot of current and ex-UFC talent competing. And then in Bellator, which is technically PFL, but because it's overseas, they're calling it the Bellator Championship Series still. This was in Paris on Friday, early local time. Ex-UFC fighter Aspen Ladd with a unanimous decision over Ekterina Shakalova This fight was straight chaos. They just went after it for 15 minutes. Aspen Ladd has not performed very good since going to the PFL. And this was one of the more exciting fights. Although I don't think Ectorina is super high level, they both went after it. And it was 15 minutes of women slugging it out. We had University of Wyoming wrestling alum Archie Colgan stay undefeated with a easy unanimous decision over Thibault Goody. We had local Paris fighter Yves Landu with a split decision victory over Jonas Bilharino in a solid fight. We also had Costello Van Steenis with a round 2 submission via Von Flue choke over Gregory Babini. That was a fun fight. And then the much hyped Cedric Doumbé, probably one of the more hyped fighters in the PFL, former kickboxer, with a brilliant round 1 knockout over Jalil Willis, who presented a grappling threat and a pretty well-rounded fighter. I think he trains at ATT or Stanford MMA. But either way, Cedric Doumbé went out there, took chances with the strike, got the finish, and that's a huge step in the right direction after the Sliver incident where he pulled out of that fight. So huge moment for Cedric Doumbé. And then somewhat of a controversial match here. We had Patchy Mix with a split decision victory over Magomed Magomedov. This was a rematch from, I think, a little over a year ago. And I didn't watch it back to really score it. But that was hella close fight. I thought they might even lead towards Magomed in this fight. But Patchy Mix stays and still the champion for PFL/Bellator. And there's been lots of talk how Patchy Mix could come into the UFC bantamweight division and compete. I'll tell you right now, he would be a good competition, but he is not beating the upper echelon fighters in the bantamweight division because that division is nasty. So we could put that to rest. And then we had the mega boxing bout. Heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, cruiser and heavyweight champion Oleksandr Usyk with everything on the line. This boxing bout had been postponed because Tyson couldn't quite do it quick enough to the February timeline he committed after the Ngannou fight. But man, did Oleksandr Usyk look good. He started hot. Tyson Fury had a lot of good rounds in the middle. But Oleksandr was coming in, landing big overhand rights, which is hard with the length and the size that Tyson Fury possesses. Sat Tyson down in one round. He looked wobbled for a while, trying to clear the cobwebs. And I thought Oleksandr clearly won. Tyson Fury protested that he won the fight. But I thought Usyk won more rounds, had the biggest moment, scored the knockdown, and honestly was really in control. When Tyson did win rounds, it was just him being in the corner, kind of using his size and length to chip away at Usyk, and Usyk would try to come in over the top and maybe not quite land. But it's interesting that as good as Tyson Fury is, he had Usyk pushing into him, and he was up in the corner of the ring a lot of the time, firing out with his back against the post there. And I just don't feel like that's the best place to be, but Oleksandr Usyk is a problem, a massive, brilliant fight. And I'm not the biggest boxing fan, but I know Usyk's, it was him and Tyson Fury, debatably some of the best boxers in the world. And I was very impressed. I thought Fury was going to win this fight because of the size advantage. He's 37 years old, so still pretty young for how much he's done. In his last few fights, he had knocked out Daniel Dubois. I don't know who that is. Had a split decision win over Anthony Joshua, which was huge. Before that, unanimous decision over Anthony Joshua, so beat him twice. And then you look at like who else he's boxed. It's like nothing jumps off the page for me. So that's the world of boxing. But he had his prove it moment. Still undefeated, 22 wins, 14 knockouts. He has the WBA, IBF, WBO, IBO, and the ring heavyweight titles. And now has the WBC heavyweight title. So I believe it's an automatic rematch clause. They will be fighting back again. But Oleksandr Usyk, if you don't know, now you know. Coming out party. What a brilliant display he had. But let's talk about what went down in the Apex UFC Fight Night Vegas 92. Got the pick'ems on track, going 8-2 in my picks. that puts us at 305 wins, 154 losses, 6 no contest draws on the overall 49 episodes in. For 2024, I'm 112 wins, 68 losses, and 3 no contests or draws. If I were to recap the card, there was absolutely some fun finishes here in the main card, and that's really what I expected. The main event was brilliant, but the prelims weren't very much to watch really at all. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Pretty lackluster card. It was all about the main event for me. But some good fights we did not break down. We had Omar Sy with a round 1 submission via rear naked choke over Takos in his UFC debut. We had Aussie Tom Nolan with a round 1 TKO over Victor Martinez. And one hell of a scrap in the ladies' side of thing, as Vanessa Demopoulos squeaked out a split decision victory over Emily Ducati, and that was very close and controversial as well. But it was 15 minutes of clear aggression from both ladies, and I was there for it. But we're going to kick it off with one prelim fight and then straight to the main card. We had Abus Magomedov with a unanimous decision win over Warley Alves. And Abus looked like a Magomedov in this fight, as he was straight grappling, going for takedowns early and often. But it didn't help that Warley gave it to him way too easy, as he was coming in with wild power strikes, which opens up the hips for the takedowns, and he was able to get wide open takedown attempts throughout this fight. So, didn't quite expect Abus to grapple his way to victory, but now he shows that he has grappling potential. He landed 98 total strikes, only 22 of them significant, but he had 6 takedowns in 7 attempts. That's a lot of takedowns with only 1 attempt that didn't go through. So credit to Abus bringing in the game plan. He had 11 minutes and 56 seconds of control time. And Worley only landed 17 total strikes, 16 of those significant. So Abus ends his 2-fight losing streak. He now starts a new winning streak. He's 2-2 in the UFC. And Worley extends his losing streak to 4. He hasn't won since January of 2021. So what's next? Well, I think a great fight for maybe late summer for Abus would be Jacob Malkoun. That'd be a good stylistic matchup. And for Worley, if he is still in the UFC, how about Ihor Potieria, who just had the short notice loss? Moving on. In the main card, how about Angela Hill, man? Round 2 submission via guillotine choke over Luana Pinheiro. This was one of the fights I got wrong, but a performance of the night. 50 G's, well-deserved to Angela Hill. I have really absolutely loved the career resurgence that Angela's had. And I've been picking her in her fights, even though she's fighting younger ladies of late, because she's really improved and become a well-rounded fighter. I didn't think she would get past this very young, hard-hitting, talented Luana. But not only did Angela overcome this, but she did it with flying colors, man. She was out-striking, out-grappling Pinheiro. She even out-judoed her, and she's the judo specialist. Angela talked after the fight. She's been adding that to her game. But at the age, almost 40 years old, she may even be 40, her speed, the accuracy, the judo, the BJJ, it was a completely on-point performance and well-deserving of a bonus. I'm glad to see it. Now, Luana landed 25 total strikes, only 17 significant. She had 1 takedown and 7 attempts. So Angela defending, offensively grappling, offensively striking, just a complete clinic here. Angela landed 39 total strikes, 28 of them significant. She had 2 takedowns and 6 attempts. So Luana defended pretty decently herself. She had a submission attempt, a reversal, and 3 minutes and 6 seconds of control time. So Angela now, let's look at her actual age here. She's like one of the Ultimate Fighter OGs that came into the UFC. 39. Her birthday is in January. So a young 39, but still, man, you got to root for stuff like this. It's like Glover Teixeira 2.0 on the women's side of things. But Angela extends her winning streak to 2. She is 4-2 since 2022. She moves up 3 spots in the rankings to number 9. And Luana extends her losing streak to 2. She's 1-2 since 2022. And Luana moves down 3 spots to number 12. Kind of matchmaking for Angela. it's tough to really think what's next. I think a veteran Marina Rodriguez would be the ideal matchup, and she deserves to fight up in the rankings now. And for Luana, she could take on Tisha Pennington, who just lost in a return from having a baby. I think that'd be fun. But how about this, man? Adrian Yanez with a round 1 knockout over Vinicius Salvador. I really had a feeling about this fight that the clean technical boxing that Yanez possesses, I thought it was going to be too much for Salvador in his UFC or in his bantamweight debut. And Adrian really put on a beatdown, but he needed something like this to, rejuice and revitalize his career. And he put a stamp on it in front of the non-existing Apex crowd, but still it is what it is. And he's a sniper with his power. He's landing almost every big shot that he threw, landing it clean and flush with a ton of power. And Salvador wasn't able to manage the distance with Adrian's jab. Adrian has a really nice jab. And it took a while for for Vinicius to get up after that knockout. It was pretty nasty ground and pound, pretty big shot. You hate to see that, but I do expect a lot from Vinicius. He's still young, only 26 years old, but this was definitely a jump in the deep end, and Adrian made him drown. Now, statistically, Adrian landed 36 total and significant strikes with the knockdown, and Vinicius only landed 17 total and significant strikes. So Adrian ends his 2-fight losing streak and starts a new winning streak. He's 2-2 since 2022. And Vinicius extends his losing streak to 3. He is 1-3 in the UFC, 0-1 at bantamweight. It'll be interesting to see if he sticks there or not. Now, what's next for Adrian? Well, if I were to pick, I would give him Dominic Cruz. I think that'd be a sweet stylistic matchup. But I highly doubt Dom at this point, who hasn't been very active, kind of picking and choosing his opponents, would not take that fight. So I'm going to go with Chris Gutierrez. I think that's realistic. And for Vinicius, I am going to assume he stays at bantamweight because he really struggled at flyweight, and he's only going to get thicker and grow older. But I'm sure he's going to be out for quite a while after that nasty knockout. So I'm going to say, how about a scrap with Cameron Simon, who will probably be looking to fight later this year as well after his beatdown from Peyton Talbot. But then we had another quick knockout. Chaos Williams with a round 1 TKO over Carlston Harris. Performance of the night, 50 G's to Chaos. And it was just a beautiful knockout. He was literally standing and waiting for Carlston, who was pretty aggressive with some big combos for that counter shot. Landed clean and flush. Quick night in the office for Chaos Williams. Massive jump in juice in his career at this point. It only took him 12 significant total and significant strikes with that knockdown. And Carlston landed 14 total and significant. So Chaos extends his winning streak to 2. He's 1-2 since 2022. Carlston ends his 2-fight winning streak and starts a new losing streak. He is 2-2 since 2022. So Chaos back on the win column. He hasn't been super active. So this is going to be huge for him. Let's see if he can get back in quick in the summer. And I think a matchup with Vicente Luque would be ideal after that win. And for Carlston, he could square up with the veteran Michael Chiesa. I would love to see that one as well. But again, this card was all about the main event. My guy, Leron Murphy. Unanimous decision over the veteran Edson Barboza. Fight of the night, deservedly so. Pay that man freaking 100 G's. But he did get the 50 G's. And what a showcase Leron put on. I mean, he had a brilliant game plan first off. But he was really good at closing distance with Edson, which is huge. And it's a lot easier said than done. And he did it with really great boxing combinations, kicks, and he had a lot of good feints. He was moving for 25 minutes. That was kind of one of the question marks. Could he do that for 25 minutes? Well, he did that and more. And he didn't stay in Edson's kicking range throughout the fight, which is definitely a recipe for disaster. He even rocked Barboza a few times early and throughout the fight. But when he did, Edson was still alive. Edson's a very durable guy. He's been in a lot of big brawls. He didn't jump in and try to get the finish and put himself in danger, which is probably good for him at this point. He even mixed in grappling, as I expected. He brought in some good grappling. He was getting takedowns in rounds 2, 3, and 5. So it's not like he was, living off the takedowns, but finding the openings. The brilliant takedown in round 2. And I personally thought Lerone won every round. There is a debate that maybe Edson snuck away with round 1 with a nasty up kick that had Lerone pretty rocked. But he was able to get on top and clear the cobwebs before the end of the round. But I gave it 5 rounds to Lerone. Of course, Edson did land some good shots. If you're fighting Edson for 25 minutes, he's going to pick and choose. He's going to find his moments. And Lerone was definitely wearing some of the damage by the end of the fight. His face was pretty beat up. A lot of counter lefts, a lot of hooks, a lot of kicks. But at the end of the day, if you don't know about Lerone Murphy, he showed how powerful he is, how quick twitch he is, the speed that he has. Now we've seen that he's durable over the course of championship rounds, and he's just an amazing, well-rounded kickboxer. He's got the cardio. In the featherweight division, the rest of the featherweights better watch out. This is a very, very legit UK contender in the making. And like I said last week, very Leon Edwards-like vibes. I can't wait to see where he goes next. And the stats tell the story. Lerone landed 259 total strikes, 220 of those significant, 220 significant strikes over 5 rounds. It's brilliant. He had 4 takedowns in 6 attempts. If he wanted it, he got it. 5 minutes and 19 seconds of control time, and that's not even really his forte. And Edson landed 79 total, so almost 200 less, 79 total and significant strikes. So Lerone extends his winning streak to 14. He did have the 1 draw in his UFC debut, but he is 6-0-1 in the UFC. He's now in the rankings at number 11, and Edson ends his 2-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He's 2-2 since 2022, and he moves down 3 spots in the rankings to number 15. So if I were to find the most realistic, idealistic matchup for Lerone, there's a lot of fun ones to put him in the top 10, but these top 10 featherweights are not going to want that business. I think Bryce Mitchell will be game. It's a fight that makes sense. It's, we don't need to jump Lerone from one good performance to the top of it. He's still young. Give him a couple fights. I think Bryce will be game. That's the most realistic matchup. Again, I don't think the rest of the guys in the top 15 want that smoke. And then for Edson, a brilliant matchup would be him and Alex Caceres. The striking that they would put on for the fans would be absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure Edson would be all up for that. But yeah, quick little Apex card there. Lots of action around the MMA world. The Tyson Fury boxing fight really stole the headlines this weekend. But this weekend, a week off for Memorial Day weekend. And then it is the massive UFC 302 card headline by the pound-for-pound #1 in the world, Islam Makhachev, and the Diamond, Dustin Poirier. I'm going to show my American roots here. If Dustin Poirier wins, the world will rejoice. But that's episode 49. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.